invest, buy it now, learn how to use it. You're using it. If you want to get called for a whole bunch of things, you've got to have a bunch of stuff. By playing cover bands, learning a whole bunch of songs. You know, every bit of money that I pour into my business comes back.
In partnership with Australian Institute of Music and Hunting with Pixels.
Let's pretend I'm a student and I want to get into the session guitarist world. What sort of things should I have underhand? What should I be doing?
Okay, first of all, I would say you've got to have good gear. It's really important. I mean, new strings. I get bands come along to my studio all the time. Oh, they're new strings. Well, when did you change them? Oh, about a month ago. you know, I change strings every day. So I mean, it's expensive, but that's what works for me. And you know, every bit of money that I pour into my business comes back. So gear is really important. Make sure you have good sounding equipment. And what's really interesting is, I have a friend that waits for the new model before he buys the model that's available now.
Okay.
Look, I won't get this one because in 6 months the new model will be out. And I'm talking about effects units or whatever.
Yeah.
And so he's constantly waiting for that next model. He never actually gets into it. Whereas I've gone, invest, buy it now, learn how to use it. You're using it. You're making your money back anyway because you're doing work. So that's really important. Stay ahead of what's new, and especially for guitar player, but also have all the classic stuff too. You know, I've got 20 amplifiers, 50 guitars, including mandolins, banjos, pedal steels, you know, acoustics, high strung, everything. So sitars, you know, I've got all that sort of stuff. You've got to have that. Even though I'm not a great player of those instruments, I can at least go to a session and say, look, I'm not a great sitar player, but I can give you an idea of what it sounds like.
Sure.
And usually in a jingle, all they want is the idea of it. The other thing that's really important is to be able to hear, have a good ear.
What do you mean by that? So to what extent?
So a lot of, especially nowadays, a lot of producers will not give you a chart. So you've got to hear the changes. You've got to hear what key you've got to immediately go. Without a guitar in your hand, you've got to hear what the chord changes are. Okay? So that's what I do. The first thing I get in, if it's a simple track, I won't write a chart out. But if it's a bit longer than normal, I'll sit there and I'll write a chart out. So I know what the chords are. I know what the extensions are. I know the intervals. I can tell the melody straight away. So it's really important these guys, anybody, you know, has a great ear. Now, how do you get a great ear? Transcribing, learning songs. I think another one of the best things that I ever did was playing cover bands. Honestly, it was amazing because you're learning a whole bunch of different styles, right? And not only that, if you learn the solos note for note. I mean, well, I guess I still do it today, you know. You learn the styles of these great players. And I think that doing lots of transcribing, rather than learning stuff off YouTube, and I think that's a problem.
Why do you say that?
Well, I can easily go and find out how to play something rather than use my ears.
Instead of digging it out of an album, you mean?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, you got to remember that, you know, I'm 52 now, and when I started learning tracks and learning guitar players' licks, we were on steam engine. No, we were on vinyl. So you'd be lifting the needle and learning the lick, and when going backwards, it wasn't like you could just isolate one section.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a guy standing there going, play these notes with these fingers.
Right. Yeah.
So your ear develops a lot quicker, a lot
Sort of
better.
flexing that muscle a bit.
Yeah,
more.
it's only muscle. That's exactly right. It's just a muscle, so you've just got to work it and work it. But understanding harmony is really important, you know, knowing not to play an F sharp over an F major 7th chord, you know, and all that sort of stuff, knowing what the chord progression comes from, and you know all that sort of stuff. That's of utmost importance, I think, especially being a session musician. You know, if you've got one style under your hand, you might get called for that thing, but if you want to get called for a whole bunch of things, you've got to have a bunch of stuff, and you really start by playing cover bands, learning a whole bunch of songs, bunch of different styles, having your gear right, blah, blah, blah.
And it's sort of out of necessity if you want to get enough calls to fill your book, you kind of need to have that underhand or different styles.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, I know with you, your knowledge of harmony is so dense, and I mean thick and pungent, right? That you know that you can take anything anywhere, or you can simplify it, right? And you can do what's suitable for the gig, but without all that other stuff, and without the understanding of the extended, you know, chords, etc., you're useless.
Yeah. Right.
Or you're limited. You're not useless. You're limited, right?
I want to talk to you a little bit about putting on the artist hats, because I know you do a lot of writing of your own stuff, and you create some pretty complex things. Do you allow yourself free rein when you're creating your own music? Is that kind of an outlet for you in terms of, I don't know, being able to let loose, where in other situations you might be kind of restricted a little bit? You know, like for sessions, for example, you might have to just do one particular thing, and overplaying is not good. Do you find that your music's an opportunity to sort of really express yourself?
That's a good question. I think I have been there, where I've been kept in a box, you know, like to do certain things, and especially when was with touring bands, you get to play that much. But then again, I've been lucky enough to play with people like Richard Clapton, who is it's just guitar solos. You know? Some of the other bands that I played with, you're kind of stuck in a role, which is cool too. And I think even all disciplines are good. But my original stuff, I don't really have a format anymore. So I'm writing. I mean, it's really interesting. I'm up to my 4th album now. My first album was a bit of everything. My second album was a concept album, which seemed like a good idea at the time. It was a bit of a mess, but it was, you know, I had to do it, and I got it out. The third album was a chill-out album. Yeah. And this new album, I've written Irish folk song. I've done a heavy metal sort of thing. I'm doing ballads, acoustic guitar. You know, I guess it's a culmination of everything that I am. And it's not so much I mean, it has been a vehicle for me to kind of do what I want to do. But now it's just doing what I do.
Right. You know? Simplifying.
Yeah.
So in the creative process, right? You're in your studio, you're alone. Where do you start? What's sort of your go-to thing? Is it with a guitar, or do you like to find some inspiration from somewhere else? What do you do?
Again, and you'll probably agree with this, is that it's different each time. But what I have found, and it's been very interesting, in that I usually start off with a feeling. I sound like a hippie, but I'm not. I start off with this feeling, and it might be related to a track that I've heard, or an emotion, or an event, or just an idea in my head. I might even think C sharp minor, B, A. And I'll look at that and I'll think, how fast will that be? Maybe I'll do it in 6/8. And that's all I'll have. And it might linger for a day, it might linger for a week. And I'll get into the shower and I'll think, today I'm going to go into the studio and see where that takes me. And so the shower, for some reason, it kind of brings it out. And then and as soon as I committed to go into the studio and do something, I sit there and I might start with drums. I might start with a guitar or something, just to kind of get the idea, and I'll get the segments right, or the sections right. And then I'll really do drums and do a basic drum track, and then I'll put guitars on, and then I'll do bass, and then I'll put peripherals on. But yeah, it's different all the time. Like on my phone, I'm constantly recording bits. I'm sitting at home and playing, and I'll just get a lick and I'll go record, and just that. And I wrote a song around one of those the other day. So, but it's different. I mean, how do you do it?
Well, honestly, I actually find it's better if I don't play a familiar instrument.
Right.
So sometimes you fall into old habits if you're familiar with the instrument.
Yeah.
So if I play piano, I tend to go for the same things. But if I pick up a guitar that I'm less familiar with, it's more like I have to think outside the box.
And you find, I'm asking you the question, do you find, guys, it's just as interesting. I mean, do you find it that you come up with better stuff when you're on another instrument, or is it just different?
Because I'm interested in writing songs that have vocals in them. It makes me more occupied with telling a story,
Yeah.
as opposed to being a musician.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it just cuts off that part of my brain. I
Yeah.
mean, that can come later on.
Yeah, sure.
But most of my music I've written on a guitar, I'd say,
Wow,
or
wow,
even
wow.
on a bass.
Wow.
You know, just
Yeah.
that's how I work.
You're so
on it.
lucky you can play all those instruments.
Oh, very badly, but
I wouldn't say that.
can get around.